Roastar Coffee Packaging, our favorite presenting sponsor, found online at roastery.com, prints great-looking bags for a host of your favorite coffee companies. Companies of all sizes trust Roastar to produce the packages worthy of their specialty craft coffee bean. At Roastar, it's their mission, it's their ethos, to help their customers tell their stories, big or small. Head to roastery.com to learn more about their quick turnaround times, digital printing, and small print runs. You can also use their new design lab to create an entirely new package in the blink of an eye. In short, Roastar can help you. And on roastery.com, you can start with a quote and end with the perfect coffee bag to share your story. Now, on to the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Coffee People podcast. That was fairly effusive, which makes sense because I'm excited to be here and be back in 2025. I'm your host, Ryan Woldt. This show is presented by Roastar Coffee Packaging. You just heard that ad, but go check them out at roastery.com. The Coffee People pod is part of the Roast West Coast network, and you can go to roastwestcoast.com to find recaps of this podcast, our Coffee Smarter shows, and so much more. Today, I'm chatting with Jenny Barber, who, along with her husband, co-founded Talitha Coffee Roasters, a mission-driven coffee company. A bit of a trigger warning for you before we get started. The San Diego-based Talitha Coffee's mission is to produce great coffee, of course, but also to advocate for sex-trafficked victims, develop a network of services for survivors, and create employment opportunities. We chat about that today, which includes some information about sex trafficking, what it means to be a victim, a survivor, and how that has shaped Jenny's path into and through coffee. There aren't any graphic descriptions, but this is an intense and emotional topic, and I wanted to give you a heads up before we get started. Okay, I need a cup of coffee. How about you? I'm drinking a medium roasted V60 pour over of a 100% Kona coffee from our friend Ed at Rooster Farms in Kailua, Kona, Hawaii. I just got a chance to stop by there for a visit with my family, and we had a little bit of a tasting over the holidays. Somehow I came away with 3 bags of the good stuff. I'll share details about the farm in the Bean Journal found at roastwestcoast.com. Wherever you are, I hope that you have a good cup of coffee too, something to sip on as you scroll through Talitha.com and listen to this Coffee People podcast featuring Jenny Barber, co-founder of Talitha Coffee.
Yeah, I'm Jenny Barber. I am the co-founder of Talitha Coffee. We are a coffee company that is based out of San Diego and going nationwide. And we exist to create incredible coffee and also employ survivors of sex trafficking.
I happen to have a connection to Talitha. One of my close friends works there, Greg. He's the one who turned me on to your brand in the first place, and I've been kind of following as you've quickly risen kind of through the ranks. You had a big acquisition about a year ago, I think, time-wise, and got you like kind of jump-started, which is pretty wild. But I'm wondering, what got you interested in coffee in the first place? I know it's not the first thing you've done.
Yeah, so I actually did not drink coffee until about probably 2015 when my husband started roasting coffee as a hobby. He actually started on our stovetop with a popcorn popper, and it was just kind of one of those things. He had heard that you could do it, and we were very familiar with, the average everyday coffee that most people are consuming or purchasing for their homes. But we were hearing about this thing called third wave coffee, and also hearing that it was something that you could do and create at home. And so he was quite intrigued and started out really simply, whirly pop popcorn popper on our stovetop. And just even with that, we were like, wow, this is actually incredible. So he began to graduate to larger machines, and as he did, we discovered really great quality coffee and without all the pesticides and things like that. And I realized, I can actually drink coffee and enjoy it. And so that's when I really started getting into coffee. But Beyond that, we've been working in anti-trafficking for about 15 years now. And we have worked all over the world providing outreach and advocacy for victims of trafficking. And through that, we continued to see that there was a breakdown when it came to the end part of the recovery journey for survivors. So they would go through recovery programs, we would refer them, and they would end up coming right back to us in our outreach efforts because they were facing barriers to reentry. And so in that's really when coffee took off for us, because we began to wonder, what would it look like to take a skill that my husband had developed as a hobby and turn that into a practical way to help survivors rebuild their lives.
I want to just provide a little bit of context for myself and anyone listening. When you say survivors, who are you referring to?
Yeah, so we actually work with men and women, primarily women, who have been exploited through sex trafficking, through sexual exploitation. Some of them are coming to us because they have been, involved in trafficking on the streets here in the United States. Some of them have been exploited through the sex industry and coming from all different areas, but all of them are coming to us looking for hope and for an opportunity just to rebuild their lives.
A lot of people who start coffee companies are doing other things and kind of dreaming of this lovely movie experience of running a little cafe and that kind of thing. But you already had this kind of thing that was really valued in your life and important to you. You mentioned using the skill to create more opportunity and advocacy opportunities for human trafficking victims. How did that conversation work for you and your husband, where you were thinking, oh, this is this thing that I do for fun on the side, but I want to incorporate it into our career life, our advocacy life?
Yeah, so we were becoming really involved in the anti-trafficking movement, and we were providing outreach and advocacy on the streets of LA and, like I mentioned, all over the world. And what started out as a hobby for my husband, I think kind of grew quickly because we realized how great he was at it. And he was just selling coffee to, at first he was just giving, come on over, try this coffee I made on my stove, and then I think he graduated to a little be more on our counter. And it was, at gradual steps from there. Then he kind of hinted at, maybe I could get a larger, like a 1 kilogram coffee roaster that we could, just put in the house or in the garage or something. And before he knew it, I purchased it. I was like, let's do this. And he actually started selling small bags of coffee just to help fund the work that I was doing on the streets. And, we were giving out gift bags to those who were being exploited, and a bag of coffee would buy some bags to take out on outreach and that kind of thing. And so it was pretty organic in that way. But I was just feeling really defeated, I guess. I was going out every single week, or sending teams of people out every single week. We were going on the streets and in the strip clubs and reaching those who were being exploited in the pornography industry. And we were very determined, to reach those who were being exploited. And they would leave. They would go, they would find hope. They would start going through a recovery process. And as I mentioned, within a matter of months, they were coming right back to us. And the average age of entry into trafficking is 11 to 15 years old. And so what we were seeing was these victims were they weren't even having the opportunity to complete education, to develop work skills. And some of them had criminal records they weren't even aware of. And so we were in this cycle, and I was feeling pretty defeated in that, but knowing that there had to be another level to the anti-trafficking movement that needed to be addressed here. So that's really when my husband was like, why don't we take what we bring to the table and do something about the problem? And so that's when he suggested opening up a coffee shop. So we started with a coffee shop in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles, and in 2020. So it was a pretty crazy time to start a coffee shop, but we did it, and we realized in that capacity we could hire maybe 1 or 2 survivors. And we knew that we wanted to address an issue. We wanted to be a part of something on a greater scale. And so that's when we reached out to a longtime friend and donor, Mike Glanz, and knew that he had a heart to create business that was highly successful and highly impactful, and prove that the two are not mutually exclusive, that you can create something that's really amazing on the business side, but also is making an incredible impact. And so we asked him to help us develop out the business model that would be really scalable and could sustain the rapid growth that we were hoping for. And he asked if I wanted to hire 5 or 10 survivors. And I said, I want to hire at least 1,000. And so that was the point for him where he actually became intrigued. He was like, okay, there's something on this. So he began to look at what does it look like to grow through acquisitions and develop out this coffee model in that way, but to do it with something that's creating not just a nationwide coffee brand, but also a nationwide impact. And so that's when he completely pivoted his life and joined us. And at the end of 2022 is when we made our first acquisition. We went from 300 pounds a month to 10,000 pounds a month overnight. And that was quite a learning curve. But we made that first acquisition down in San Diego. We have continued to acquire companies, and now we have cafes, we have multiple roasteries that we've streamlined all of production into one facility. We have a coffee training institute, and so we're able to offer employment to survivors of trafficking. Through our coffee training institute, we are offering specialty coffee training to wholesale customers, to the public, but we're also able to scholarship those for survivors. And then we have the Talitha Survivor Care Network, which is offering holistic care. So everything from therapy, support groups, legal services, reunification with children, work skills, all of that kind of stuff, just to really make sure that survivors are having not just the practical assistance of job placement, but they're also able to have those other tangible things that they need in order to really succeed in reentry.
I find it really interesting, this idea of entering the industry in an acquisition state of mind. That's, it's just not a story that I hear a lot. I've done 300 of these episodes, and it's maybe once or twice. How has that, going from, you said 300 pounds to 10,000 pounds overnight, expanding into areas that maybe not your initial focus, or finding new challenges, how do you manage that from a business side when the advocacy is such a key component for you? Like, you're obviously very passionate about it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that we have actually been really surprised by the response. Whenever we acquire a company, it's not like they initially signed up to be a part of a coffee company that had a cause behind it, right? But we've actually been so encouraged by the response, because we have a high value for change, and we talk about that a lot. We realized early on, if we're going to be a company that is growing with this model and a company that's working with survivors of trafficking, we have to have a value for change, right? We have to be able to adapt. We have to be able to grow and develop and make shifts and change. And we also have to realize that when we bring on a new company, yes, we are imparting our DNA and our culture and things like that, and the incredible operational systems that we bring. But we're also realizing that these companies that we're acquiring, they have attributes that are incredible and that we need to learn and grow from as well. And so I think by valuing change, it really leaves room for that. We have seen in the companies that we've acquired, there has been just such a positive response to change as well. I think a lot of times people go after building their careers, the thing that's missing is the purpose. You can build all the skills in the world, all the talents in the world, all of the success in the world, and then kind of get to this point where you ask yourself, but why? What was all of that for? And I think that by being a coffee company that has a cause, we're kind of creating opportunities for people to take their skills and do it in a way that's not just serving coffee or roasting coffee, but now you're also doing that and changing lives. And that's been something people have been really excited about. I think being so immersed in the anti trafficking world for so long, I think I also wasn't aware of the opportunity that this would be for us to create awareness. When we do our monthly trainings with our staff, we're hearing from people that are living everyday lives and had no idea the reach that trafficking has and the impact that trafficking has. And now we're able to inform and equip our staff in such an organic way that they're actually becoming really passionate about this issue as well, and they're bringing that knowledge back to their families and to their communities, and really, raising advocates just through everyday coffee.
Just as like a normal person who doesn't necessarily have a connection to trafficking or survivorship, it it breaks my brain a little bit to think about how often it happens and on the scale. And we're seeing a lot of it recently in the news with some celebrity issues and people I think it's on the forefront. So we're talking about it. And it's just coincidence that you and I are connecting now. The name and the branding, how did you settle on that? And how does it reflect, what it is you're doing?
Yeah, I absolutely love our branding. Everything is so intentional behind it. So Talitha actually comes from an Aramaic story where a little girl is raised from death to life. The origin is Talitha Kum, which means maiden arise. And that's what we're wanting to see in the lives of survivors, right? We're wanting to see them rise from this place of desperation and hopelessness and some of the darkest situations that that do really break the brain, that you can't even fathom that these horrors are happening, and they're rising from that place into a place of empowerment and hope, to a place of being able to dream and pursue futures that they build. And so that's the meaning behind the name. And then if you look at our branding, we wanted to choose colors that were vibrant and happy and really cultivated hope, right? That's everything. We're hope roasted. Everything that we do is about creating hopeful opportunities for the survivors that we work with the communities that we work in, and with our employees. And so everything's very vibrant and full of life. And then if you look at the side of our bags, you'll see there's a beautiful silhouette of a woman, and that's just a way to represent Talitha. I think Talitha is also a name, and it's a name that can represent the overall picture of survivors. And, it's a way that survivors can share their stories in whatever capacity they want to. If somebody wants to share their story, but they don't want to disclose, they want to remain anonymous, they can have that opportunity to do that through that silhouette and through the name Talitha. We also really encourage survivors to walk out their journey in the way that they're most comfortable. So when we bring on a survivor staff, it's need to know. Not everybody knows that they're a survivor, just those who need to know in the company in order to make sure that they have the support and care that they need. And then from there, we will totally get behind them. If they want to share their story, we will champion that, right? And then we also, if they're like, hey, I want to work this job, I don't want anybody to know, we're also behind that as well. This is something that I've been able to lead out in. I'm actually a C-sex survivor myself. So I faced exploitation as a child. And so even with that Talitha model and platform, like, I've been able to share my story and kind of create opportunities for other survivors to do so as well, in whatever way that they're comfortable to. So that's all about our brand, is all about just creating hope and opportunity.
And I would say from the outside, I think representation, when a survivor sees somebody out there talking about it or representing or starting a company or working towards something, it makes you think, oh, if they can do it, I can do it.
Absolutely.
And I think
Right.
there's a great value there. When I think of cause brands, whether it's coffee or booze or whatever it might be, towels, soap, Dr. Bronner's comes to mind. I don't always think about the product first, the quality of the product. But you and your husband had this thing as a hobby where you were learning and caring about craft and specialty coffee. Do you find it a challenge to convince people that you're also doing the coffee side in a certain way, or is that secondary? Does that matter as much to the company and the brand? How do you address that question?
We are all about creating an excellent product, right? We want to create an excellent product that is accessible to everybody. So we have been able to create multiple different coffee blends and single origins and all of that at price points that are still accessible and not exploiting people. So the thing that I love about coffee is that we can fight trafficking and exploitation all the way at origin. We can do that by partnering with farms that are having everybody sign code of conducts, and they're making sure that they are treating people fairly and paying people fairly. And we don't have to compromise on that front, but we're also all about intentionality. So every single bean that comes across our warehouse is roasted with intentionality to its best capacity. And the reason why we're so adamant about that is because again, we want to prove that you can be highly successful and highly impactful. And I think that part of being successful is creating an excellent product. I think it's also really important for the survivors that we're working with. We're inviting them into a company that is roasting with excellence, and we're inviting them to be a part of something that is incredible, that they can actually be really proud of. They can know that they are worthy of being a part of a company that they can be really proud of, and creating a product that they are excited and that is winning awards. And they can just feel excited and proud to be a part of that. And I think that our staff, all of our staff, can be really proud of not just the impact that we're making, but also knowing that we are making award-winning coffee.
I'm wondering how you feel about, you brought up the term hope, and we're at a moment in history where hope seems to be lacking a little bit, or it's not as easy to find. You got to work a little harder for it. What is the value of hope when you're in a dark place, in your opinion? Or what is that value that providing hope to a group of people, what does that mean to you as an opportunity?
Yeah, I think hope gives us the inspiration to just take another step, right? It's believing that there can be more than the reality that we are currently in, right? That we continue to, like you said, it's something that we have to work for a little bit more right now. There are seasons in life that are like that, right? Regardless of where everybody, even as a nation, where we're all at, whatever it is, where the world is, I think that there are going to be times in life where things feel a bit foggy, where things feel a bit muddled, and you're kind of like, I don't know how we go forward from here. But I think that hope is something believed for. It's knowing that there's got to be more, right? There's got to be an alternative future, an alternative way, all of those things. And I think that oftentimes when you are in the darkest of situations, it's really hard to have hope. It's hard to believe that there could be anything other than what you're experiencing. And by being a company that is creating hope, what we're doing is we're saying we're coming alongside and we're creating opportunity. We're creating the resources that are needed, and we're believing in you. So I think even in my life, I was able to escape a lot of the darkness because I had people that showed up. I had people that continued to call out my potential and the value on my life. And because of that, they were so insistent about it that at some point I was able to reach and grasp for that hope myself. And I think that that's what we want to be as a company. We want to be the people that are saying, hey, we see you, we believe in you, and we're here to create opportunities, and not just constantly, be handing on assistance, but also to get you to a point of setting goals and believing and really creating your own path forward, and achieving independence and all of those things. And so I think I think that we forget how powerful that can be for people. I think that in a time when sometimes it feels like hope is hard to find, it's important to continue to speak it out, right? To continue to say there is hope, there is opportunity, and believe for those things. And you never know the way that your life is going to have impact on those around you, right? So I think that the people who were reaching out to me and, speaking encouraging things over me and calling out who I really was and my potential and all of those things, they never knew where I would end up. They didn't know that I was going to end up creating a huge coffee company with a group of other people who had no idea and all of these things. None of us knew where our lives were going to end up. Those people didn't know the power of their words over my life, but now look. So I think that it's important to realize that our lives have impact on others around us too.
I heard this phrase recently. I can't remember. I think it was in a show, and it was "find the crack in the darkness." And there's always a crack somewhere. You just got to find it, and you might have to search for it. But you mentioned something just now about you don't know where your life is going to go, and you didn't know that you'd start this company. It wasn't like some plan you had from early on. But that makes me wonder if you feel like you're an entrepreneur at your core, or if it was an accident of advocacy that gave you this opportunity. Do you think if this advocacy wasn't your focus, and I know that's hard to imagine necessarily, we're dealing a little bit in hypotheticals, but would you be trying to start a business on your own anyways? I mean, the entrepreneurial mindset is a little bit different than going to work 9 to 5 and making donations or showing up to volunteer.
For sure. Yeah, that's a great question. I am a true maverick to my core. Like everything about me, like you take all of those personality tests and all of that stuff, it is like all of my scores are 100% blaze my own trail maverick to the core. And I'm also definitely a pioneer to my core as well. And so some of my earliest memories of being a child were creating little businesses, which is hilarious. So, my dad worked in the whole construction world. And so whether it was selling water to other construction workers or making egg salad sandwiches and selling them to the other workers and driving them around in my Barbie car and making deliveries, whatever it was, like I think there's always been kind of that pioneering business spirit inside of me. I've also pioneered a nonprofit that's also still doing incredible work. And so I think it's always been in there. I don't think if you would have asked me early on, like, is this what I thought I would be doing? Of course, I don't think I would have said that. My husband came in with the coffee skill, and that's why, I am not the coffee person, right? I definitely bring the impact and that kind of pioneering thing. But, I think when you begin to partner your skills with other people as well. So, you had me who was very active in the anti-trafficking world and a pioneer. And then you had my husband who's also very pioneering and incredible at coffee. And then you have Mike, who is incredible in the business world and scaling and all of that. And you kind of brought all of these skills together. I really think that that's what was able to ignite everything that we're doing. And then not to mention all of the incredible other people, you mentioned Greg, who's doing our operations, and he's just a whiz with that stuff and making connections in our operations world. And then we have other people on our team that are just so excellent at what they do. And then the cause is really what pulls us all together, which is incredible because we all came to the table to do something to make a difference.
Mm. Just to clarify, you mentioned your nonprofit, but Talitha is not acting as a nonprofit. It's acting as a for-profit in the idea that it's creating a successful business that can continue, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Talitha is for profit on purpose. So we did that again because we really want to show that business can be highly successful and highly impactful. And we really believe that in the business world, we can have an even bigger impact. And so I think a lot of times people think and can kind of get stuck in this mindset of like, if I want to do something great for the world, I have to go in the nonprofit realm, and I really have to kind of stick to that side of the world. But it's just not true. I think that we can be intentional to make a difference in whatever we bring to the table, whatever our business model is. There are ways that you can be changing the world with your model.
There's an interesting dynamic with nonprofits where I think the world looks at them and thinks you should be doing this out of love and not necessarily making money or you should be living basically can't even say that word. You should be living just enough to pay your bills, but you're doing this for love, when in reality, the more we reward nonprofits, the more successful they can be. And you're kind of just saying, well, we're going to do the same thing, but we're doing it without that label holding us back to some extent. Not that that's the only thing.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned earlier on, and I have in my notes here, the Talitha Care Network. What is that?
Yeah, so our Talitha Survivor Care Network is it is a group, it is a collaborative effort. So everything that we do in Talitha is very collaborative. We believe that we really can see a day where trafficking is completely abolished, that it is not an issue that we are facing, but that we absolutely have to do that through collaboration. I don't think any one organization is going to end the issue, right? But it's going to happen because a bunch of people come and bring their skills to the table and really fight together to make a difference. And so the Talitha Survivor Care Network is an expression of that. So we really began to create it from a place of making sure that our survivor staff had the resources that they needed. So, as I mentioned, the therapy, support groups, life skills training, legal services, all of those types of things. But it's even kind of beginning to grow beyond that. So we have the nonprofit side of what we do in the Care Network. So those are the individuals that are offering resources to survivors. And then we have the businesses that are also a part of the Talitha Survivor Care Network that are providing additional employment opportunities for survivors. So if we don't have a position that's available, we can refer to other places that we know can hire survivors with care and support. Or if a survivor comes to the end of their journey with us and they want to try something new or launch out to something that gets them closer to their goals, we have businesses that we can reach out to in that way too. I think there are about 80% of victims who leave trafficking actually end up being re-exploited and returning to the life. And of those who succeed, only 20% of survivors are able to succeed in work environments if there are not support networks put in place. And so we're really going after creating opportunities to see that change. We want to see survivors to leave the life. We want to see them go through recovery, and then we want to see them launch into successful and thriving lives. And so that's why the Talitha Survivor Care Network exists. It's actually been really incredible to watch this network develop, because now our nonprofits are actually working alongside each other and bringing strength to one another and kind of teaming up their skills, and even talking about like, hey, let's open a safe home together and things like that, which is really incredible. Yeah. So it's really becoming a networking opportunity, as well as creating opportunities and services for survivors.
That 80-20 number is fairly devastating to hear. I'm wondering, is there a structural reason that you could, I mean, obviously we're digging too far deep into that, but that a structural reason that success is so fleeting?
Yeah, definitely. So I mentioned earlier that the average age of entry is 11 to 15 years old. And that what that does is that creates barriers to reentry, right? So you see survivors facing things like they haven't had the opportunity to develop life skills in some areas. Some areas they haven't been able to complete education or build work skills or have their first professional job and things like that. And so those are all big hindrances. I think that it takes an average of 7 attempts for a victim to leave the life of exploitation. And so what we're seeing there is that we're seeing this reality that sometimes the unknown is even more terrifying than the reality that we're living in, right? And kind of like we talked about, hoping for an alternative future can be really daunting and terrifying. And I think there's also, factors as far as there are not a lot of employment opportunities where there's going to be the structures and the patience and the resilience on the employer side of things to employ a population that is so high risk, right? And so it's really important to make sure that we're creating pathways. So you think about like career pathing, I think that it's similar with survivors, but also on the personal side of their journey. So when a survivor comes on to work with us, we're looking at where they're at in their journey, right? We're making sure that they have the resources that they need. If they don't have stable housing, then they're not going to be able to show up to work, right? If they don't have their legal documents, then they're not going to be able to get employment and things like this. And so that's also why the Talitha Survivor Care Network is important, because it's making sure that all of those pieces are put into place. And then as an employer, we're looking at their journey that kind of coexists and is in alignment with their career pathing. So starting for, what does it look like to show up to a job on time? What does it look like to meet your daily tasks, and then taking on more responsibility, and then kind of developing into a place of taking on more leadership and initiative and all of those kind of things. But in the beginning, we have to really meet them where they're at. And I think that a lot of times those numbers come into place and those statistics that are really daunting come into place because there isn't opportunity, or they don't know about the opportunity. So I think that the more and more services that we see for survivors in that re-entry phase, in that launching phase of the recovery journey, we're going to see that 7 attempts really go down. We want to see that go down to 1, because we want people to know, I can grasp onto an alternative future. I think we also look at trauma, and trauma really, it makes our brains get stuck. We get stuck in different places of our cognitive abilities, but also in our development and things like that. And so when you're in a place where you are stuck and you're living from a nervous system response and things like that, you can't dream. You can't set goals, right? You're just trying to get through every single day. And so recovery and safe homes, they allow survivors to come out of that nervous system, constant crisis response part of their brain. And then things like Talitha and the Talitha Survivor Care Network, we're coming alongside and we're saying, now let's set goals and dream for a better future.
There's a phrase that I was thinking of early in this little segment called the devil you know. And it's something I've kind of held on to throughout my life when I'm about to take a big risk or go into the unknown. Is the devil that I know worth what I'm going through, or should I take this step? Because who knows how good it could be.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you have, you've started a company, you've grown, you're a survivor yourself, and you've created these networks and opportunity for others. Is there a piece of advice you'd like to pass along to anybody listening about coffee or about life, about entrepreneurship, whatever you like?
Yeah. I think that a lot of times people look at others and they kind of can get stuck in comparing themselves, right? They can look at people who have built incredible things and be like, wow, that's so awesome for them, right? Or how incredible to be somebody who's done those things. But I am legitimately just a normal human. And, I think that I was once stuck in frustration. And in our family, we say frustration is an opportunity. And we really try to instill that mindset in our kids. And honestly, we just had that light bulb moment of being like, what if we're the answer to the problem that we see? What if we just take our skills and do something? And I think that it just starts from taking steps in everyday life, right? You have a future, you have a place you want to get to in life, but what are you doing today to get you closer to that goal? And so I think don't get stuck in comparison. Everybody's on their own journey, but everybody is capable of incredible things. It's just having the courage to do that and to say, you know what, I'm going to take a step towards it. And I think that, we want to bring other people along into that journey. We want Talitha to be something that inspires other people and shows people that that's possible and that everyday people can do something that's great. And so that's the other thing I love about coffee, right? Coffee is something that brings people together. It's something that create space for others, and we really wanted people to join the fight with us. And so by buying a coffee subscription or bringing a wholesale coffee into your business, like, we are actually creating avenues for people to be a part of the fight against trafficking.
Coincidentally, I was at cocktails the other day, and one of the women with us asked me what I knew about Talitha, because it was like a program at their school where they were buying it and
Yeah.
as a group. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'm actually going to be connecting with them soon. And I kind of shared what I knew, and now I'll have a lot more to share. I have two last questions for you. Hopefully, not terribly challenging ones. But the first is, when you're out on the road or you're out visiting someplace thinking, oh, maybe we'll, acquire a new business today just for fun. And you stop at a coffee shop, what do you order for yourself?
Oh, for myself,
Yeah.
I have two go-tos. I love an iced oat milk latte, and I am like so basic in that way. But then I also really love cold brew, and I'm so excited. Like, Talitha has some incredible cold brew. That's something we have nailed. And so that one I have to be a bit more picky. Like, when I'm like, okay, how's their cold brew going to stack up? But those are my two go-tos.
Okay. And then the last question, and borderline the most important one. If you had to pick your favorite Keanu Reeves movie, what would it be?
Oh gosh. Oh my goodness. Oh, I cannot. I'm so bad with names. Um, oh my goodness, I cannot even remember the name. Throw out names to me. Like,
Well, we've got The Matrix, we've got Speed, there's John Wick, there's The Lake House.
John Wick. There you go. Absolutely, hands down, love the John Wick movies.
Yes, except for like a minute that I fast forward through in the beginning, of the very first one, because I didn't watch that movie for years, almost 10 years, because I had heard about the scene with the dog, and I was
Oh,
like,
I know. I know. It's
so I Google searched what is the minute that happens, and I just skipped it. And
Yeah, yeah. It's like so gut wrenching, right? Because you're like, that was all you have, like that. Yeah, that's
I
devastating, right?
I find this incredible dynamic with Keanu Reeves, and it's one of the reasons I asked this question, where he seems like the most hopeful person,
Yeah,
especially in Hollywood and famous people generally. And
yeah,
then he's famous for these roles, which are for John Wick in particular, which is pretty aggressively not hopeful.
yeah.
And I just find that dynamic wonderful. Jenny, thank you so much for spending 45 minutes chatting with me and taking time out of this journey to build something. And I certainly am looking forward to seeing where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for including Talitha in what you're doing.
Okay, just a few key takeaways here, but head to roastwestcoast.com to see much more in the newsletter. Jenny didn't actually get into coffee until 2015. That's when her husband started roasting on a stovetop hopper at home. It's a more recent hobby, but they've turned it into an opportunity to start a business that meshes with their efforts in anti-human trafficking, which has been part of their life for much longer than coffee, already 15 years and running. It's a cause that's close to home, as Jenny was once a victim. Through their nonprofit work, they saw that survivors had different needs when moving into a career path. Their challenges were numerous, and while opening a coffee shop would help, they could only offer job placement to a few people, a few survivors. Talitha is their effort to create a much bigger opportunity through acquisition, which will enable them to offer more and more opportunities as the company grows. Of course, they couldn't do it alone. They reached out to one of their longtime supporters and current partner, Mike Glanz, for guidance and support to make it so. 2 years after opening the first cafe, they made their first acquisition. Overnight, their roasting pounds went from 300 to 10,000. But they didn't stop there. The growth has continued with more education, more training, more support and advocacy occurring as they've pushed the boundaries of the business. During an acquisition, Talitha imparts their ethos, their DNA, on a business that may not have thought they would ever be part of a mission-based company. But the response, according to Jenny, has been positive, as they've imparted purpose beyond the job to their new partners, who, in turn, have turned into passionate advocates for a brand that roasts coffee and offers hope for many that the next step into a different place is still possible. All right, that is our Coffee People podcast for today. Learn more about Talitha Coffee's mission, their survivor network, and brand ethos on talitha.com. You can also follow them on @Talitha Coffee Roasters on social media. You'll find all of those links in this podcast's show notes or in our newsletter, which of course you find at roastwestcoast.com. I hope you sign up there. We send about 1 email a week on average. If you've been enjoying or inspired by an episode of Coffee People, it really helps us if you tap the follow button on this show and give us a few stars on whatever platform you're listening to us. If you want to go beyond to support the Coffee People podcast, tell a friend, share this episode, share one of our newsletters from roastwestcoast.com, or consider buying us a cup of coffee. As we look at 2025, we could certainly use one. Speaking of friends, I always tell my friends about Roastar Coffee Packaging, found at roastar.com. They are this podcast's presenting sponsor and will help you tell the big story of your small business. They've also just been an incredible support in enabling me to develop this platform, where we share the stories of coffee people. And now in 2025, we're going even further with Roastar. There's more news on our expanding brand partnership, progression into video podcasts on Spotify and YouTube, and our plans for giving away free coffee with Roastar's help later this year coming in the next few days. Follow at Roastar on social media, and be sure to explore their packaging design lab on roastar.com. And I say that even if you're not ready to leap into your own packaging. The design lab is just a fun way to create and dream up branding ideas. This show has long been supported by our other great industry partners, in particular Hasea Coffee Source, Maria Coffee, Crossings Coffee, and Cape Horn Green Coffee importers, as well as Civets Coffee. We've made some major changes to our sponsor program, which will be detailed on our website this week, and we're going to be doing a lot of collabs this year. But one last time, thanks to the rest of our original partners, Zoom Bar Coffee and Tea, Ignite Coffee Company, Ascend Coffee Roasters, Me and My Uncle Coffee, Craft 42 Roasters, Cozy Canine Coffee, and Relative Coffee Company. Thank you for being there for the long haul. We appreciate you and can't wait to work on future collaborative projects. Speaking of, our first coffee collaboration, Yeah No Yeah Coffee, is out now. We put this out with our good friend Bryant Banker Scannell at Relative Coffee in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's a blend of Colombia and Ethiopia coffees, which were sourced from Mill City and roasted on a Mill City roaster, where Bryant also works as a coffee educator. We couldn't be prouder of it. Bryant has been absolutely crushing the roasts, and I've been really enjoying it, mostly as a traditional AeroPress with the Prisma adapter. I do 20 grams of coffee, 50 grams of water, stir 5 times or so, and let it sit for about 75 seconds before beginning the press down. I suggest you give it a try. I'll put that recipe in this week's newsletter. Thank you for listening to and sharing this podcast. Please keep being coffee curious. This show, the Coffee People Podcast, is part of the Roast West Coast Coffee Network. This episode has been written, produced, researched, and recorded by me, Ryan Woldt. Wherever you find yourself today, I hope it's with a pretty damn good cup of coffee. Thank you for listening to us tell the stories of coffee people. Oh, and I almost forgot, cheers to Kim Z. You have been supporting this show since the beginning, and I just wanted to say thank you. I'll make sure I reach out, but wherever you are, Kim Z, I hope you have an extra special cup of coffee today. Hey everyone, this is Ryan, the host of the Coffee Smarter and Coffee People podcasts. I drink a lot of coffee, and a lot of times I brew it in a V60 or an AeroPress, but sometimes I just want to hit the button and walk away, let the machine do its work. That's where the Simply Good Coffee Brewer comes in. You can read a review that we wrote about it. It's on our website at roastwestcoast.com. It's pretty popular, actually, and we stand by it. We've been abusing this coffee machine for almost 2 years. I think that's right, almost 2. Literally hundreds, maybe even 1,000 brews have gone through it, and it just keeps on crushing. We don't do a lot of affiliate marketing, but I definitely feel comfortable giving a thumbs up to the Simply Good Coffee Brewer. I strongly recommend it. I've actually gotten a bunch of them for other people or gotten them on board with it. There's a link to click in this podcast show notes and a full review again on roastwestcoast.com. If you click to buy it through that, we'll make a little bit of affiliate marketing money, and you will get a great coffee brewer. It's another way you can support Roast West Coast and get a little something for yourself. Thank you so much for listening, and enjoy your new Simply Good Coffee Brewer. If you are in the early stages of your coffee journey, we want to support you. Check out the Coffee Smarter Education podcasts. Coffee Smarter is designed to enable coffee drinkers to brew a better cup of coffee at home. And Coffee Smarter Pro covers industry-specific topics for baristas, roasters, shop owners, and aspiring coffee professionals. You'll find both shows on your favorite podcast platforms or on our website at coffeesmarterpodcast.com.